Well, I want to welcome you to the webinar. We're going to be talking about how to prepare your staff and volunteers to lead STEM activities. And Melissa is going to be helping me with this webinar today, and Holly will be connecting with you in the chat box and has already said if you have any questions or need any support on the webinar to type a question in the chat box. This webinar is being recorded, so we will be able to share that with you afterwards if there's somebody that you wanted to include that wasn't able to make it at this time. I want to start today by setting the stage a little bit and asking for your help. I have a squash sitting at home and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. How do you figure out what to do with a new food? Can you share some suggestions for me in the chat box? Pinterest is one of the ideas I see. Google it. There's a lot of resources online that you can use. You can always ask a neighbor too. I asked the person who gave me the squash if they had any suggestions for what to do with it. The reason I started with talking about squash is I think it actually is pretty connected to what we're going to talk about today about preparing for STEM. Because when you think about it, preparing dinner is a lot like preparing for STEM activities. You need to have a plan. Usually that's a recipe or at least a little bit of a plan. At my house, maybe not quite as detailed as a recipe. And then you need to make sure you have enough time and supplies, a bright space to prepare your recipe, that you have the right tools that you're going to need, and all of those sort of things. And you have to have everything in order and practice, but really you only get good at it by doing it. And that's kind of what STEM is like too, that you have to do it, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. But having a plan and being prepared makes a big difference. So we're going to talk today about some strategies that you can use to help adults be prepared. Melissa?
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Fenton, and I'm the Click to Science Project Coordinator. Can everyone hear me okay? Please quickly type into the chat box if you can hear my microphone. Perfect. So we want to talk a little bit about adult learners. Most of our volunteers are going to be adult learners. So we need to think about their needs and how those needs are different than the youth that you work with, or maybe even teen leaders that are volunteering for you. So we're going to talk about 4 important traits to remember about how your staff and volunteers want to learn. So first, adult learners are busy and they want to know that you are using the time they give you well. Adult learners need to know what they are learning is useful. Explaining the why of what they're learning is helpful, and emphasizing that the concepts they are learning are important and the time they are taking out of their schedule is appreciated. So they are most ready to learn when they have a need for their learning now. So try to make the learning timely and related to program or organizational goals for your volunteers. Adult learners tend to also be self-directed and like to take control over their learning. Adult learners tend to desire a peer relationship with those doing the teaching rather than a hierarchical one. So when you think about, you know, I'm going to relate this back to a college course, the mantra of the sage on the stage, the professor who is just talking to everyone. Adult learners don't tend to learn the best that way. They like to see it as kind of a peer-to-peer relationship that they're learning this information from you as a peer, not as a sage on a stage. Adult learners also have a lot of skills and expertise that they can build on, and they deserve respect for what they know and can do. The NASA report that we have up in the files to download pod, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later, found that staff members are diverse and come from a wide variety of backgrounds. They use these skills and expertise as a resource in their learning. So just as youth are going to connect and scaffold their learning to what they already know, so are adults. They connect what they are learning to these diverse experiences and backgrounds, so it's important that you encourage discussion about how new ideas fit their experiences and existing knowledge. And finally, adult learners are intrinsically motivated. The staff and volunteers you work with want to build their skills in working with youth because that is important to them more than any other reason, like a stipend or a requirement. And the NASA report found that effectiveness was more often associated with beliefs and attitudes than with training and skills. So now that we've went through some characteristics of adult learners, we want you to share in the chat pod what you have learned about adult learners on your side through working with your staff or volunteers. So please share your experiences working with adult learners in the chat pod.
There's a lot we do know about working with adults, and I think being respectful and building on their knowledge is key to a lot of it. That seems to be what Alex is saying too. Their input is valued. The long quote on the screen in front of you right now is from that NASA after-school report. You can download the full report in the corner pod there. What the report is a examination of after-school programs that NASA commissioned to kind of learn more about the out-of-school time environment and how NASA could work with out-of-school time programs. NASA's done a lot of work in the regular school, formal school program and supporting science teachers and things like that. And they're interested in how they could work with after school. So they commissioned this report with the American Museum of Natural History in 2005. And one of the unanticipated results of the study was that they identified ways in which after-school programs are not only able, but actually are well situated, uniquely situated to support STEM learning, which wasn't necessarily something they expected when they began the study. Researchers found that because after-school staff members were working with youth, but were not experts in STEM, they were able to build on their skills in youth development and connecting with youth and support youth in taking ownership of their ideas and explanations. The result was that the learners, the children in the program, were more confident than they might have been if they had only been able to work with experts. The skill that we're talking about here, we call it co-inquiry, because the staff were learning science right along with the youth. But they were using their youth development skills to connect with those young people in real and meaningful ways and make that learning actually more effective than what was anticipated. As I said, if you want to learn more about these findings, you can download the full report. The key idea we want you to pull from here is that there are aspects of the after-school program that make it perfect for STEM learning, and it's about how we relate with young people and how we are able to situate the learning that is most important, and that's what we want to build on when we're doing professional development with staff, to build on the skills and expertise they have connecting with youth to make them more effective at facilitating STEM. So I want to think more about this role of co-inquiry that they talked about in the report. Here are some strategies that you can use to help create this environment of co-inquiry. Youth ask many questions during STEM activities, and focusing on questions rather than answers is really going to be powerful for your staff. Rather than jumping in and giving them answers, encourage staff to support the youth in finding out for themselves. They can experiment with materials to see what will work, or Google it, as somebody suggested at the beginning of this webinar. They can learn how to find and evaluate information online. The important thing is to view questions as opportunities for learning and to facilitate the opportunity to learn rather than focus on answering the questions. Second one kind of builds on that. Don't focus on finding right answers. Instead, focus on the learning that's happening as they explore, as they ask questions. That means that often we're focusing on the process, our skills along the way, rather than content learning. Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to get the correct answer that we forget to let youth take their time and make their own connections along the way. We also want you to focus on developing skills that make STEM click. The skills on Click to Science are designed to help staff and volunteers increase their ability to facilitate STEM. They emphasize the need to be a co-inquirer and to focus on questions and exploration, and to give youth a voice as they guide their STEM learning. As staff work on these skills that really support co-inquiry, they'll be more confident and more comfortable with not having the right answer and being able to guide you through exploring on their own. And finally, we can't emphasize enough the importance of giving youth voice, fostering them to have their own control of learning, encouraging them to explore new ideas or suggest activities for further learning for the whole group. If we let youth do the thinking and the problem solving themselves, we're giving them some control of their learning and really making sure they actually learn, rather than just telling them what we think they need to know.
Thanks for that great discussion on co-inquiry, Sandra. This is Melissa again, and now I'm going to go into the video portion of our webinar. So the Click to Science site focuses on video-based learning modules that show frontline staff leading STEM activities. And this video illustrates many of the ideas we just shared with you. So I want you to think about the following questions as we watch the video, and be prepared to share your thoughts in the chat box after the video is finished. So first set of questions is, what strategy does Jean suggest that prepares youth to learn about STEM? And how would this strategy prepare the staff and youth for STEM learning? And how does being prepared increase learning? So we're looking for the answers to those two questions, and Holly will be typing those into the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video and make it larger so that everybody can see it. And we will get started. So remember, think about those questions as you watch this video, and be prepared to share your thoughts in the chat box after the video is finished. We'll give you a little time to do that, so I'll be quiet for a little bit after the video.
Would anyone else like to share what they've created? I'll go to Samantha first.
I added this to make it hover more to the bottom.
Being prepared for a STEM-related activity is the key to successful STEM learning. When you feel confident and comfortable leading a STEM-related activity, you can concentrate on the skills that make STEM click with youth. For true STEM learning to take place, it is vital to build in time for youth to reflect and process what is taking place. Watch and listen as Jean talks about the importance of being intentional about the outcomes for STEM learning by youth.
The process of all our activities is a starting meeting where we find out from the children what they know about a particular topic. So it's really important for us to know where they are, and then so we ask them, what do you know about electricity? Where have you used electricity? What have you been curious about electricity? And what would you like to know more about?
So why did that not work?
Because it didn't even fly.
It didn't even fly. And why? Because, so you had it like this.
Then we go through the activity itself, and then really important to draw out what they've learned, and our form of assessment is to have a reflection meeting. So we leave at least 10-15 minutes at the end of every class, and if we can't do that because we're running out of time, we make sure to be able to do it in the first thing in the second class.
Arkham, did you want to share your car with us first?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna make a pilot ship for STEM. But at the very end, it's gonna kind of tip over.
During this reflection meeting, we invite the children to share what they've created. We're asking them questions so that they will be able to share with us what they learned.
So what was really hard about making yours?
The thing that I got angry the most, it never fully went.
It never fully went down.
The questions are designed specifically for us to assess what they've learned during the process. And then we invite their peers to give them plussing ideas.
Ian, did you have a plus too?
Yeah. So you can add more lights to make it like fancy, and you can make it like switch like one by just pressing one over and then other.
So we encourage them to stay away from feedback that sounds like, oh, why didn't you do it this way? Or why did you do it that way? And rather say, hey, here's an idea. Maybe you want to use that next time. And here's an idea, and maybe you want to use that next time.
All right, I hope you all enjoyed watching that video. If you want to share the strategies that you saw Jean talking about that prepares youth and staff for the STEM learning, and then also how being prepared increases learning, feel free to do that now. Any other thoughts you had about the video, you can share those in the chat box as well. I'm going to go ahead and be I see some great things coming up in the chat box, so I'm going to still give you time to finish typing any thoughts in there, but I'm going to share a couple things that I pulled from the conversations and then also kind of my own observations. So I like what Sandra said, that it's important, just as it is with adult learners, to show youth that you value what they already know. And Alex mentioned that this is a good starting point to assess the learning. I liked how Julie noted that encouraging asking questions develops critical thinking skills, which is very important as well. So I think my summary of the first question has all of these pieces to it, that asking youth what they know about a concept helps staff gauge how much they may need to do as far as talking about content or what kind of questions they can be prepared for. Alex did mention that you never know what kind of questions they will ask, and you're right. So if you ask questions up front about what they may know, that might help you prepare a little bit for those. So that also helps youth know what they should be focusing on and connect what they know with what they learned, so that scaffolding as well. And being prepared helps increase learning because youth can actually focus on the activity and not be distracted by not having the right materials or not having instructions and knowing what's going to come next and things kind of being chaotic and in disarray. Youth also have time to process and reflect what they're doing, how this relates to what they already know, and learn from their peers' observations and perspectives. So it's very important to be prepared to lead STEM activities so that you can get the most learning out of that really quality activity. And it looks like Charlotte shared some really great thoughts that, yes, she didn't directly answer them, helped them kind of lead them to what they should explore and get that answer themselves. So thank you so much for sharing, and I will hand it over to Sandra to talk a little bit more about how you can get your volunteers to be prepared to facilitate STEM.
Melissa. So we've talked about how important it is to prepare for STEM learning, but then how do we help them get there? So there are several Click to Science skills that are really relevant to what we're talking about here. There is the skill of preparing yourself to facilitate STEM, and it has some specific strategies that staff can use to prepare themselves. But there's other skills that can also be really relevant to this question, and there are lots of ways that you can share these with volunteers. So you might have a content expert coming in to do a STEM activity, and they may be pretty comfortable with the STEM part of the activity, but need more help with how to work with the youth, how to interact with them in positive ways. So then a skill like creating safe space or group management during STEM would be great resources to share with those experts who need a little bit more background on working with youth. You may also have some volunteers in your program that are familiar with youth, that they've been doing that for a long time, but they're a little nervous about the STEM part of leading a STEM activity. So then you might have them look at skills like preparing yourself to facilitate STEM or asking purposeful questions so that they can be more comfortable with the STEM part of that activity and how to make STEM learning happen. What we want to emphasize here is that volunteers are different and their needs are different too. So we want to try to find resources that are appropriate to meet their needs. And then there's a lot of different things that we might do with those resources. Melissa is going to tell us a little bit about different ways we could use those resources.
Thanks, Sandra. So these are just some ideas that we thought of based on our work with other after-school professionals, but I want to encourage you to share other strategies or what you do to prepare volunteers to facilitate STEM activities in the chat box. Peer learning, as we talked about, is very important with both adult and youth learners. So I want you to have the chance to share some of your great ideas while I kind of walk through some ideas that we come across through our work. So some organizations hold volunteer trainings. You can gather the resources from the skills we suggested or choose your own and have a volunteer training. So in the files to download, we've gathered just a few of the Click to Science resources, summer training and summer meaning, for you to download, and that can be a package that you would deliver to volunteers. And this is just an example of how you can combine the Click to Science resources to fit your needs. So this volunteer training could be required or similar to the background checks that you have to do for volunteers, or you could use this as both a volunteer and a staff training day so that they can kind of get to know each other. If you have volunteers that are going to be coming frequently to your program, it might be a good way for them to break the ice with the staff and get to know each other. So we have, once again, a few of our favorites in the download files pod for you to look through. We also always encourage people who are going to be leading STEM activities to do the activity. So during a training or even on their own, volunteers should practice the activity they are going to lead. This helps them prepare questions, reflection times, and anticipate possible problems before they happen. So if you're doing an activity and you're finding yourself struggling with one part of it, youth are probably going to struggle with that part of it as well. So being prepared to help them work through that without just showing them how to do it is really important. You can also use the online learning modules. So Better Kid Care has online learning modules focusing on the Click to Science skills. You can ask volunteers to complete lessons for the skills you need them to have. So as the ones we suggested earlier are based on the needs of different types of volunteers, you may identify some specific skills you want volunteers to have and ask them to take these Better Kid Care online self-directed learning modules. They do cost $5. However, we run promotions for free Better Kid Care lessons when you register for Click to Science frequently. So keep your eye out for those if you're wanting to use that promotion to get people introduced to the system. I guarantee you once they take one, they'll want to take more. So you can also share the videos and the resources with your volunteers. So maybe none of these other strategies are an option because you don't have the time or the resources for volunteer training or for them to take the Better Kid Care lessons. So you could always share links to Click to Science learning modules and instruct the volunteers to follow the steps outlined in those learning modules on the website. So step 1 is usually watching an activity overview video, and then 2 has some questions for you to think about while you watch a skill video. The step 3 is watching the skill video, and then you answer the reflection questions below. So you could encourage them to follow the steps outlined on those learning modules and do some of individual professional development. So you could also gather some of the handouts and resources from the site and share those with volunteers. So I know in the strategies for group management, there's a great worksheet at the back of that resource that has some different strategies for group management that staff can use. So if you're working with a volunteer who has no idea how to kind of keep everybody on the same page during STEM activities, they can go to that and look through those and maybe select a couple things that they think will work for them. So in our minds, even a little information is better than none. So however you think you can get your volunteers to improve their own practice facilitating STEM activities, we would more than encourage you to do so. So if you have any other ideas, feel free to share those in the chat box.
We'd love to hear if there's ways that you've used the Click to Science resources that you found to be successful too. And as you're thinking about how to use those resources, if you get started on the website and you get confused or you're not sure what to do, here's our email, and feel free to email us at unl.edu, and we would be happy to provide some support on the specifics of your situation and knowing what you want your volunteers to be able to do. We can give you some suggestions about resources that would help meet those needs. We also have some other great ways that you can connect with us. So here's some choices. Again, lots of ways. If you go to our website and register as a user, then you're going to receive our weekly newsletter so you know what's happening. You may already be a registered user on our website, and if you are, we really appreciate it. Our registered users are one of the most important ways we can count the need for Click to Science and know whether we're meeting a need out there. So as our user base grows, that helps us know what the need is and that there's interest in this type of resource. In the chat box where you can find our upcoming events on the website so you can see what's coming up there. That's also where we post the recorded webinar. So if you want to share this webinar with somebody else in your program, that's the place to find the link. Give us a few days to get that posted, but it'll be up there and you can share it. Melissa, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to join us and share all of your great thoughts and resources with the group. We really appreciate it. And please reach out to us if you have any questions. I'm actually one of the people who physically answers the email box, so you'll be talking with me. And I would love to hear any ideas that you have for using Click to Science or help you in any of the things you're struggling with. So please reach out and connect with us.